Good evening and welcome to this Central Area Planning Committee on Wednesday the 28th of July. My name is Councillor Michael Edwards and I am Chairman of this committee. Before we commence the business of the meeting, there are a few housekeeping issues to run through. The setup for the meeting has been designed to mitigate for COVID. Therefore, can I ask all present to work to the protocols agreed at Council on 29th of April 2021 in the interests of member and officer safety. We are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to be recorded. Members and officers, during each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. When invited to speak, please remove your mask, put on your visor, or turn on your microphone and speak clearly. Please reference the page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers. Please keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible and ensure your microphones remain off when not speaking. Can I draw your attention to the notices on the agenda papers regarding the different levels within the chamber and advise that the fire exit is the door behind this top table. I would like to add one other notice, and that is I would like to propose that the committee agrees that I move item 9, 2100339 Quest Motors to the first item, as I have a few things to say about it. Can I have your agreement to do that, please?
Agreed.
Thank you. Apologies for absence. May I have the apologies, please, Tara?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Hurd and Councillor Hubener. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 3, it is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of July, found on pages 7 to 8, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder for this motion?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Can I agree this by assent or take a vote?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests other than other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regards to paragraph 6 and 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the needs arise throughout this meeting. Councillor Nunn.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I haven't got a visor here, actually. Do you want me to continue to sit or stand?
No, sit.
Thank you. First of all, my disclosure relates to item 8 on the agenda, although I realise you've shuffled the agenda, but item 8 as it is on the paper, on the published document, 4 Silver Street. It's been suggested by a resident of Silver Street that I have a close personal relationship with the applicant. I don't. I am acquainted with the applicant and I know the building, but then I'm acquainted with a lot of people in Maldon and I know a lot of historic buildings in Maldon. I've spoken to the monitoring officer about this accusation, and the monitoring officer has said that not only do I not have a pecuniary interest, but I don't have a non-pecuniary interest. But in the reason of transparency, I felt it best to declare that I am acquainted with the applicant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. Probably a bit deep, but I better declare a non-pecuniary interest in agenda item 5 because I have eaten at the restaurant concerned.
Thank you, Councillor.
Very nice, thank you, sir.
Any others? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to item 5, which is the item I asked to be moved. Now, the reason I asked this to be moved is because I would like to propose to this committee to defer this application. And the reason I want to defer this application is because we first had papers from officers recommending, and then yesterday we had amended documents refusing. Now, I think this is unfair for the applicant to receive such late information, in fact the day before this meeting. So in fairness to them, I would like to defer this application to the next committee meeting so that they can resolve the issue that's been raised. I'll come to you in a minute, Councillor Morris. So they have time to resolve this issue because this was unexpected. And I think if I can ask Mr. Johnson just to elaborate a little bit more, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, it's really just going over what you've said. This application was recommended for approval on the basis that a way forward on unresolved parking bay sizes and lorry parking issues would be resolved by the time the application was heard tonight. It has, however, transpired that the matters could not be resolved in time, and as a result, it was necessary to change the recommendation to one of a refusal of planning permission on the grounds set out in the members' update. However, a view has been taken, given the short notice of the revised recommendation and the willingness of the applicant to seek a resolution to the parking issues, to request a deferral of the consideration of this application to within a timescale which has been agreed between officers and the applicant, to ensure that any future decision, as taken by the committee or by agreement with the chair of this committee, of this major application does not prejudice the Council's statutory requirement to make decisions within government guidelines for determining planning applications. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And as he said, it is a major application, so therefore it needs further consideration. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to second your proposal on this one and just offer some condolence to the applicant. I don't get emails either, and I'm on the council. They don't even send me emails. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. So, the proposal is to defer. Do you all agree? Yes. Thank you. So, item 21/00339. Sorry, Councillor Swain.
Can I just add as a point for the officers to look into? I noticed that in 3.2.1 of this application, it said that SUDS, an adequate SUDS arrangement should be agreed prior to determination. So does that not mean that that has to be sorted out before it comes back to us?
I'll have to ask Mr. Johnson there.
I think if I recall, we do have Ms. Matthews here for clarification if we need be, that that matter has been raised on the members' update. Am I correct in that, Ms. Matthews?
Yes, it's on the update. Yeah, through Chairman, that one of the updates on the update is that SUDS have withdrawn their holding objection on to this proposal and now have no objections.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lagan. So, okay, Councillor Lagan, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I know the resolution's been passed, we've decided to defer it, but I would like to say a little bit of disappointment that it brings upon the applicant, like Councillor Morris has said, because of B3 about parking, it's an area that should have been resolved by mutual consent beforehand. So, you know, I look at that and think a major application like this, which should be going before us tonight, I have a degree of disappointment. And a bit more plain language would really help a very simple Maldon boy understand these things.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, that's been noted. Okay, so, sorry, the proposal was to defer, and we all agreed by dissent, and seconded by Councillor Morris. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item, we therefore go on to item, well, it's out of order now slightly, so it's the first one is 210069, which was item 5, now item 6. Can I still refer to it as item 5? Item 5 then, 21000269, McDonald's, and this one is, I think Catherine Matthews is going to report on that.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so this is an application, as you say, relating to McDonald's down on the Fullbridge, and it involves a number of elements, including the reconfiguration of the drive-through lane, so it's got side-by-side ordering, and the parking and the curb lines changed to accommodate that. There's also some alterations to the elevations of the building, including a folded roof concept, a small extension and replacement drive-through booths, other minor works including a relocation of the shopfront entrance with a new sliding door and the installation of 2 digital customer order displays with overhead canopies and a goal post height restrictor. Can everyone hear me okay? Because sometimes the visors don't help. Right, so this is the location plan, which I'm sure most members, particularly Councillor Lagan, is aware of where it is. Aerial photo, and the car park on the left-hand side is Tesco car park, not the McDonald's. The McDonald's is building roughly in the middle, with the bypass to the northeast. They've got an existing block plan and a proposed block plan. So the proposed block plan shows the creation of a second lane, if you like, along one of the boundaries of the site. And I've also indicated the positions of the new custom order. Can't remember what the D stands for. The new displays and the 2 new booths, which will be replacing existing ones on the eastern elevation, and position of the new goal post height restrictor. Reference in the report is made to a 2016 application that was approved, which includes a number of elements that are included in the current application, including that second lane along the western boundary. So we've got existing elevations of the building and proposed, so the main changes being changing the roof material and some other minor elevation treatments, and the new booths, which you can see on the bottom left-hand elevation. Existing floor plans, probably won't notice a lot of difference with the proposed. It's gone slow again. Proposed floor plans, new booths are there on the top. So that's the customer order displays and an elevation height restrictor, which is pretty standard. And this is an example of the roof finish proposed, just to show. And some photos of bits of the site, various parts of the site, elevations of the existing building, which shows the existing roof materials which would be changed. And this is a view of McDonald's from the nearest residential property, which is on the causeway. And view of McDonald's from the bypass, which I mentioned earlier, with Tesco's in the background. Right, that's the next one. The proposal is considered to be acceptable. The changes to the site are relatively minor and also largely reflect what was approved back in 2016. There have been no objections to the proposal from any statutory consultee, and having been assessed, officers consider that the application is acceptable, subject to the imposition of conditions as set out in your agenda paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Matthews. Okay, I would like to now open the debate and invite you to put any questions or comments you might have, but I'll perhaps start with Councillor Mays, as this is a call-in. Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I was going to give way to other members first and come back afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Morris.
Councillor Lagan first is
Very kind of you, Councillor Morris. I just wanted to know, with the addition of the other lane, help alleviate some of the terrible traffic congestion that we're experiencing?
Through Chairman, obviously by increasing the capacity of the site to store cars while they're waiting to be served will inevitably lead to less cars beyond the site boundaries. How much that would be, I don't know, but it's quite clearly that would be the case. And by having two ordering points is going to help the flow of traffic through the site, speed it up. compared to what it is now.
Could I just
Absolutely.
just a point that because yes, and thank you for the answer. But it may increase people's appetite to come because it's a bigger draw, because there's more facilities, so it could actually work in the negative. It's an unanswerable question, I suppose, really, but it's just a point to make.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a useless bit of trivia for the committee that McDonald's is the largest toy distributor in the world. I personally don't like the idea of places like McDonald's increasing their stranglehold on our young children's diets and whatever else. And that dull banging noise that you can hear in the background is probably Mr. Lee at home hitting his laptop, because he'll be saying that this isn't a planning thing at all. But I do not think that Maldon District Council should in any way encourage McDonald's to be expanding in our district due to the unhealthy aspects of the food. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Sorry, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to draw to members' attention that the 2016 application has in fact been implemented. It was approved by committee. It has been implemented. That's set out within the report. There are elements on the site that have already been carried out. So in terms of the implementation of the two-lane proposal, that can actually be taken place. The applicants, obviously their business model had changed over that period, hence the reconfiguration of certain elements of this proposal. But what members do have to bear in mind is that this application has been implemented. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mears.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I've looked at this quite carefully. I've also looked at other examples of McDonald's drive-throughs with 2 lanes. This is one of the smallest, well, it is the smallest that I've come across. I'm very curious as to why the side-by-side wasn't implemented in 2016 and what the ancillary associated works around the site that are referred to in the report actually relate to. I'm not entirely happy. I like it as it is, as a building. It's okay. I think the dark khaki green roof is an excellent choice. It will blend much better with the riverside location. However, the rather bright, gaudy cladding, I don't really understand. I'm not also terribly happy with the fact that there should be 46 car parking spaces on this site, and there are only 34. That's 12 deficient, not 1 or 2. 1 or 2 I could have possibly, and it really comes back to what Councillor Lagan was saying about, you know, increased cars coming here. Are you then, you know, you've not only are you increasing cars, you've not even got car parking spaces sufficient for the number of spaces that the site should actually have. I did take this up with Amit Patel, who was very helpful and provided me with a raft of information, but that didn't seem to get addressed. This is also in flood zone 3, which is obviously is protected by flood zoning defences. Can anybody tell me whether it's an A or a B? That also, you know, it does have an effect. Should we be encouraging further development in a flood zone B, for example, if it's an A, that there aren't tests of vulnerability, etc., or sequentials or exceptional tests, yet we apply them elsewhere? Perhaps you know, you could come back to me on that. The final point I wanted to make was McDonald's seemed to have also taken away the play area, which is now going to be covered with a piece of road, and yet are not prepared to do anything to mitigate for that other than put a few plants in. I find that wholly unacceptable. I think that there is demonstrable harm with the roof cladding from an aesthetics point of view. I don't want this building to stand out like a sore thumb. It's bad enough that we'd have to put up with the yellow M's. I'm not I'm not anti McDonald's or anything. However, I think there are some very valuable things that we need to actually look at before we take this any further. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Before the officer makes an observation, can I just make an observation on your comments? I think the point of a drive-through is not to park. So,
Could I come back, Mr. Chairman? Having visited many drive-throughs on many sites, and not just McDonald's, not just this applicant, on lots of other providers, there are always parking spaces. Always. I have not been to one that is literally a drive-through with no parking spaces, unless someone can point me in the direction.
sorry, Councillor,
Thank you.
what I meant was that the people driving in to pick up food will be driving out again and not actually parking.
I accept what you say, but I actually take issue with it. That isn't what happens in reality. They see a long queue, they'll find a parking space, and they'll walk in.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you.
perhaps Ms Matthews could answer some of the questions raised there by Councillor Mayes.
I can address some of them. In terms of the flood zone and the sequential test, because of the nature of this application and the size of the addition proposed, the sequential test wouldn't apply anyway, whether it was A or B. So from a flood risk point of view, it's acceptable, or there's no objection to it. In terms of the playground, if you removed it, I can understand members' concerns and preference that it would stay, but that was put in. Well, I don't think there's any record of permission being given for the player to be put in, and that would have been lost in any event if the 2016 application had been implemented fully. Our officers wouldn't know the answer as to why the 2016 application wasn't implemented without asking the applicant, which obviously you can't do. Were there any other questions? That's what I've got written down.
Yeah, I come back to the 46 versus the 34 car parking spaces, and I take it that the flood zone, through you, Mr. Chairman, the flood zone is because the site is too small to make it warrant any sort of test? I'm sorry, I don't understand, that's all.
Okay, it's there's the requirements of the in terms of a flood risk assessment and the sequential test. It depends on how big the development is. So where you've got an extension to existing building, if the extension is below a certain size, then there's under a minor development, which is sort of exempt from the normal rules and regulations that we would apply. If for example, the whole McDonald's was being applied for now, then it would apply, but because it's only a small addition to what's already there, then it doesn't. And provided the floor levels are the same and they introduce flood resilience measures, which they have, then that satisfies the government guidance on development in terms of flood risk. In terms of the parking, I think that...
Sorry, Catherine, just before, if members can look at 5.6 of the report, that actually sets it out. And in 5.6.1, that talks specifically about the size of the extensions and the thresholds of 250. And in this case, the proposal is for 5 square metres. So that's set out there. In terms of the other elements regarding flood risk, that's set out 5.6.2 and 3. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Can I just comment on something that Ms Matthews mentioned, Councillor Mayes mentioned, the fact that why was it not built when it was approved? I presume that would have been a business decision rather than a planning issue.
Yeah, I can just respond to that. I mean, as stated earlier, the application has been implemented in terms that it started. Now, although the commission was back in 2016, once you materially start the works, it means you can sort of finish it as and whenever. I did mention that there was more likely a business decision in terms of some of the configuration. And as set out within the report, the layout which is currently in front of you is the original layout, but they had actually come in with a modified layout, which had a slightly different exit from the collection point. That was the basis of, fairly in-depth highway comments, which led to removal of that proposal and reversion back to the original proposal. So there were some business decisions which they're taken during that time, which has led to this position.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Sorry, I think Councillor Morris and then Councillor Bill, wasn't it? Yeah, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I was just going to come back to Councillor Mays and just say that on occasion the Causeway and Fullbridge are all made into a car park by McDonald's. I've been there down there quite a few times and seen such sort of car parking carnage that I don't think that increasing the amount of people they can serve is going to help the local traffic. Thank you.
Councillor Bill.
Thank you, Chairman. I can really see this new layout causing a lot more problems than what we've got already. As Councillor Morris said, it's absolutely horrendous down here sometimes. Unless there's staff there stopping traffic, they block it. The traffic goes right back to the roundabout. It's dangerous. And if you're telling me that one lane going into two, going back into one, isn't going to increase it, or a load of twaddle, basically you're going to have arguments. It's going to slow down the queue because the people on the outside are going to be trying to get in.
Sorry, did you say, Councillor Bill, that one going into two going to one? It's not the case,
Yeah,
it's one going
one
into two.
into two into one is going to slow up the whole operation because the people on the outside,
Oh, I see, round,
yeah,
going round.
they're just going to have to keep forcing themselves out to get into the existing queue. That is going to cause a lot more problems than what it's going to benefit.
Thank you, Councillor Bill. Is there any comment you can on that, Mr Matthews?
Through you, Chairman, I hadn't come back before I talk about that to Councillor May's question about the parking, and that is set out in the report 5.5.2, where it says that for food and drink units, which is what the McDonald's is, the standards are set as a maximum of 1 space per 5 square metres, and then there was so the maximum spaces would be 46, but 34 spaces does comply with the adopted standard. I can appreciate members may have different views as to whether that's enough for this particular store, but we're business, but that's the parking standards that we're working with and that have been adopted. In terms of whether the proposal would make the conditions better or worse, officer's view is that there's the potential that it could make it a bit better, but it certainly won't make it any worse, and therefore no harm will be caused by the development proposed. In addition, and even if there is existing harm, it won't make the harm any worse, and therefore there wouldn't be grounds to refuse the application that could be sustained. Officers would suggest so, and I think it's been mentioned before at other meetings that you can't expect a development to can't require a development to improve an existing situation. The planning process would just aim to prevent any problems getting worse than they are. I think Mr. Lee talks about wiping their own face. So yeah, that was how I would respond to those concerned.
Thank you. Councillor Swain, I think you were next one, then Councillor Morris. And then I think...
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, obviously the traffic is the main. As far as flood risks concerned, if this is a
can you put the microphone down a bit? I can't hear you, sorry.
Sorry?
Can you just move the microphone towards you? I can't hear you.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, if this is a flood risk, then the same risk applies to Tesco, and it would be much more serious if that was flooded than McDonald's, I think. As far as traffic is concerned, we have this problem. I mean, the problem shows that it wasn't a very good place, or would not, under current circumstances, be a very good place to have a drive-through McDonald's, or perhaps a McDonald's at all. The traffic does back up, and I'm not sure quite whether we can have any sort of a mitigation for that. I was there on last weekend. It was lunchtime on a Saturday. and it was in fact impeding the roundabout traffic. One could get round there, but they were having to make spaces for it, and that was backing up onto the roundabout. But that's a problem that exists anyway. I think it is possible that the easier throughput will ease that rather than have the alternative effect of just encouraging more trade. But when it comes to it, if we don't allow what is, should we say, an improvement for their business, we are in fact saying we're trying to restrict their business activity. And I'm not sure whether we really can do that simply on the grounds of a problem that is off-site that is going to be there anyway, and which perhaps needs other mitigation factors.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Swain. I think Councillor Morris was...
Just coming back to Councillor Swain, I think that the geographical location and the size of the building are going to restrict it more than we ever can. I would like to propose that we go against the officer's recommendation and refuse this one. I'd ask for a seconder, please.
Councillor, seconding that? Okay. Sorry, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to remind members that, as said earlier, this application has been implemented. The drive-through dual lane is exactly the same as what was approved in 2016. There is nothing to stop them from carrying out those works as they currently are. Refusing this application would only prevent the decorative changes which they're proposing, and also an extension to the cash and the presenter booths of the 5 square metres, which would just make working conditions somewhat slightly better for the operatives. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could just come back, I mean, this might well be a fait accompli, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I wasn't here in 2016, and I wouldn't have liked this in 2016. We're in 2021, and I don't like this now. So, a proposal. I've got a proposal in. Thank you very much to Councillor Bill for seconding it. I'd ask that we could put it to the vote, please, Chair.
Okay.
Just vote on refusing. Yeah, I've got that.
Yes, it will have to.
Yep, Chair. I would cite lack of car parking and flood. Thank you.
Councillor Legan, you wanted to have a
Yeah, just
final
wanted
word?
a quick point, and thank Mr Johnson for pointing out and reminding members. Members are entitled to debate and have a view based on the information that's in front of them. I think when we've looked at this debate, which I think has been very interesting to consider, there's some points for and points against it. But the fundamental problem with this is not this development, it's all the overdevelopment this place has seen through terrible decisions of the past that we can't change. So this place is choking, and this is just an example of that. So I just want to say just to that.
Thank you. I think we've debated this now, so Councillor Mace.
Thank you for the opportunity to come back. If this layout was agreed in 2016 and they want to re-implement it, why is it back here? Why is it back at this planning meeting? Because that's what we're trying to agree. I don't understand why it's come back here because that's the major part of it, and certainly the bit that we've spoken about the most. Why is it back at this planning committee? And they're not just implementing it. They can.
Right, well, the reason why it's back here because there are a number of other elements which are material development to the site that require planning permission.
Certainly isn't how the report reads. So, sorry, I don't get it. Okay. I don't understand. It's fine.
Okay, Tara, sorry, do we have to take you?
Vote on it, Chairman.
Sorry?
We need to vote on Councillor
On the first one, yes, Councillor Morris's. So Councillor Morris's recommendation is to refuse. In fact, seconded by Councillor Bill. So can we have a show of hands then, please?
1, 2, Chairman. 3, sorry, Chairman. 3, Chairman. That's 3, 4. And those against, Chairman?
And vote against?
1, 2, 3, 4, Chairman. And abstentions? 1. And yourself, Chairman? You abstaining?
Abstaining.
Yeah, 2. Thank you, Chairman. So that's not agreed, Chairman.
Not agreed. Okay, so we go back to the original recommendation, which is to approve this application. So can I have a show of hands, please?
Can I ask for a recorded vote, please?
Yes, of course. Recording vote. Sorry?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, do we not have to have somebody actually propose that we accept this? It's just that there's elements on this plan that I don't like,
Okay, so can
but
I
I
have
don't. I didn't agree with refusing it on the grounds that was refused, which is why I
can I
abstained.
have someone to propose the recommendation, please? You'll propose it. Okay, and the seconder, please, to Councillor Swain. Councillor Lakin, thank you. Okay, so we now have a proposer and a seconder to approve the recommendation.
Recorded vote, please,
And a
Chairman.
recorded vote, please. So, do you want to call a recorded vote, please?
So members, those in favour, please, if you could indicate, I'll call your names out. Those in favour of approval? Councillor Swain, Councillor Magan, Councillor Stilts and Councillor Nunn. Thank you. Those against? Councillor Morris, Councillor Shaughnessy, Councillor Miss Beale, Councillor Mays. And abstentions? So Chairman, there's an equality of votes. There's 4 that have voted in favour and 4 that have voted against. So it's your passing vote.
I'm sorry, but I would approve this. Thank you. So 2100269 has been approved. Item number 6, 21/00270. Sorry, McDonald's again. So,
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So this is one of 2 applications for advertisements at the McDonald's to upgrade and add to the adverts that are already there. So this application is for the installation of 4 fascia signs on the building, and these 4 would replace existing signs, so there'll be no additional signs. So on the location plan again, so these are the existing elevations, and you can see the yellow M's in various positions, and also the word McDonald's on the bottom right hand corner there, on the front elevation, and then the proposed elevations. So the front elevation, which is the bottom right hand corner, those 2 signs are replaced by 1 large yellow M and a fascia sign, and then we've got replacement signs on the other 2 on the side elevation as well. So again, these are photos of existing, but that's not much more to say on that one, other than the signs would not cause any harm in terms of appearance or highway safety, which are the 2 main issues to consider when determining an application for advertisements, and therefore it's been recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, open for debate. So, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would propose that we go against the officer's recommendation to approve and knock this one back. I would say that we do not need to be taking drivers' eyes off the road, looking at screens on the building. And yet again, I don't think we need to be advertising something that is detrimental to our young people and people in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mays.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're stuck with the yellow M. I'm not keen at all on the implementation of the white lettering of McDonald's. It's much more intrusive to the eye than the black is. The black sort of disappears into the background. You see it when you get up a little closer. We all know what the M means, and I think it's too intrusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mays. Anyone else? Councillor Swain. Sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed that one. Second, that kind of my second, Councillor Morris's proposal. Councillor Swain.
Yes, it seems to be entirely reasonable for McDonald's to advertise their establishment, and in a sense, using the logo is a reasonable substitute for the name.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Swain. Anyone else? So the proposal is from Councillor Morris to refuse, seconded by Councillor Mays. So,
On what grounds, Chair?
well,
Highways, and also that it is intrusive and incongruous.
Sorry.
is that a...
Well-
Really obtrusive, causing visual harm.
Yeah, just to remind members that the advertisement consent are controlled strictly by the impact on amenity and highway safety. In terms of the latter, there is no objection from highways in terms of highway safety, and I think given the nature of the site, that's purely self-evident. So a reason for refusal on that ground could not be sustained, and in my opinion, my professional opinion, could not be sustained on any appeal. In terms of the amenity of the area, just to sort of state the obvious, this is clearly not a conservation area. It is within a commercial setting, and therefore amenity has to be within that particular context. There is no amenity impacts in terms of its juxtaposition against any sort of residential area, or in that sense, it is an area what it is, and it is a business which is promoting something which already exists. So hence, that's the context for which officers has made this recommendation for approval of this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Mays.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to come back. I don't have a problem with making the M bigger. I don't have a problem with where they put it. I don't like the white, which I believe is intrusive visually in the area, and I don't think it is necessary as a result. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so can we therefore put the proposal to the vote?
Chairman, can we just be clear on the reasons, because the officers mentioned something different to what Councillor Morris.
Sorry?
Just clear on Councillor Morris's reasons for refusal, please.
Can you just repeat your...
Councillor Mays.
The signage is visually intrusive and obtrusive, causing harm, detrimental to the area.
What Councillor Mays said, thank you. Can I ask for a recorded vote, please, Chairman?
Yes.
Members, if you could just indicate for, against, or abstain, please, when I call your name. Starting with Councillor Miss Beale, please. Against. Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Abstain.
Councillor Lagan. Councillor Lagan.
Abstain, please.
Thank you. Councillor Mays.
For.
Councillor Morris.
For.
Councillor Nunn. Against. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Abstain.
Councillor Stilts.
For.
And Councillor Swain.
Against.
Chairman, that's 3 for, 3 against, 3 abstaining.
On you again, Michael.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm going by the officer's recommendation.
So you're voting against the proposal, Chairman?
Yes.
Okay.
Could I just get clarity on that? Because you said you're going against the officer's recommendation, but the recommendation was made by Councillor Morris to
Sorry,
reject the
so
officer's
against the
recommendation.
proposal, Councillor.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Apologies.
No, I apologise, it's just me going mad.
So,
To vote on approval.
now we need to vote on the approval for the recommendation. Proposal? Councillor Swain? Seconded, Councillor Bill.
Taking this as a recorded vote again, Chairman. Members,
Yes.
if you could indicate for, against, or abstain, please. Starting Councillor Miss Beale, and this is for approval as per the officer's recommendation. For, thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Abstain.
Councillor Mays.
Oh, against, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I've missed Councillor. No, it's my fault. I've missed Councillor Lagan. Apologies, I've missed you off the.
Against, please.
Against. Councillor Morris.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Nunn. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Stilts. Councillor Swain.
4.
Chairman, that's 3-4, 4 against, 2 abstain.
Can you say that again?
3-4, 4 against, 2 abstain.
So it's that's lost.
So this is a Wild West situation.
So what do we do now, Tara? We have to.
Through the chair. Mr Johnson, is there any chance that we could speak to the applicant and come back with something that preferably a majority of us could agree to? Is that an option that we have?
I would say it's not something that I would advise.
Through the chair, is this something that we could now take a vote on to defer for central planning? So basically we defer this, put it up to central, so we all make the decision.
We are central, Councillor Morris.
Sorry, district planning.
Is that something that can be done, Tara?
Yes, Chairman, members can do that.
Okay.
Councillor Mays has got a hand, Chairman. Councillor Mays.
Sorry. Yes.
Well, we're not running into a timing issue at all. I don't know.
I mean, 28-day timing issue.
Well, yeah, Mr Johnson.
It's something that we would, discuss and if the applicant feels that there's a possibility that there may be a decision in their favour, then I'm sure they'll be agreeable to an extension of time. But saying this, advert applications don't actually impact on our performance as such in terms of our government stats.
So the proposals defer to district. Is there a seconder on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Can I have a show of hands if we do that? And how many is that? I'm not, sorry, I can't. Is that-
So those in favour?
Pardon?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Chairman. Anyone against?
No, I'm voting against. I thought you'd taken before.
Oh, sorry, I'll start again, Chairman.
Could we have a recorded vote so we get it out?
Yeah, second that.
Some members, if you could just indicate for, against or abstain, please, when I call your name. This is for deferring the application to be decided by the District Planning Committee. Starting with Councillor Miss Beale, please.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
4, please, Tara.
Thank you. Councillor Mays.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Or
Councillor Nunn. Councillor Shaughnessy.
4.
Councillor Stilts. Councillor Swain.
Abstain.
Chairman, that's 6-4, 1 against, 1 abstention.
Okay, so that's now been approved to defer until a later date. Thank you. Right, item number. What's now? Where are we?
Number 7, Chairman.
7, which is
McDonald's again, Chairman.
The other advert.
Miss Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is the other advert application which I alluded to earlier, and these are for some new signs, and they're linked with the proposal to increase the number of driver ordering displays. So we've got 5 new digital freestanding signs and 1 digital booth screen. Again, the location plan and the area view. And that was the proposed layout, which has now been approved. So, I don't know whether you can see this very well, but the red signs are the new signs proposed, and then we've got some signs that have previously had permission and the relocation of previously approved signs which are now in the wrong location because of the change to the layout of the site. So these are examples of the signs. So this is a double panelled sign. Councillor Lagan might be getting hungry. Another sign, this is a smaller one of the digital displays, and a little screen which will be at the booths. And again, same photos again of the site. Is there any more? Oh yes, of the existing building. So again, the same issues arise, issues of highway safety and amenity, and as officers have explained in the report, it's considered that none of these signs cause harm to amenity or highway safety, and are therefore recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, open to debate then, please. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to draw out the advertisement for McDonald's anymore, so I would propose that we defer this to District Council. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second that as the other one's going as well.
Ms Matthews, can I just correct me if I'm wrong, but does this not refer to the first application where you have to have booths when you have 2 drive-ins?
As I say, this one is linked to the planning application that was considered and approved. The adverts proposed are to do with this, the creating the double lane and increasing the number of people who can order.
For use for ordering as you go in the lane, is that? Yeah. So one can't go without the other, surely.
Well, these are their adverts, so they've got the menu displayed on them, so people can be choosing what they want to order when they get to the order display.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's not advertising as such in terms of McDonald's. General. Pardon? It's the menu for people driving in.
Yeah. So
yes.
they come under the advertisement regulations, but they're not like the M and the McDonald's sign.
But if you don't have them there when you drive in, you can't order.
No, exactly.
Well,
is that right?
It would make it more difficult, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the additional 2 is because you've got the additional...
Because you've got the additional 2 lanes, yes. Sorry, Councillor Lagan was first, I think. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think you actually said it quite right. One goes with the other. So if you have your 2 lanes, you're going to speed people through by having more signage. So I don't have a problem with this at all, to be brutally honest with you.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like just to point out 5.3 of the report, effects on public safety, and 5.3.1, considerations of public safety, are defined as matters having a bearing on the safe use and operation of any form of traffic or transport, including the safety of pedestrians. That is a quite well-used pedestrian area, and whilst having more cars slowly parked up is fine, I do believe that it would be detrimental to public safety if you've got these bright screens and people crawling through traffic whilst trying to see what's on the pound saver menu and running people over as they go. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mains.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern really lies around the number, and always has been the number of, because it's such a small site, it comes down to what Councillor Morris was just saying about when you're driving in. There is no reason to have, nobody ever looks at the first 2 menus. It is always the menu by the actual booth where you order that you look at, if you're going to look at one, because most people know what they want. So that is the element that I'm unhappy about. I think it is overdevelopment within this very small site, and it is very cramped going through that. And to add 2 lanes, which has already been agreed, that's fine. I think actually adding in additional signage is unnecessary for this particular site. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
So just a quick supplementary. The thing, and I'm glad members are taking safety seriously because that's how I earn my living. But one of the things that I read in condition 7 was about the proposed light source of the position is shielded in perpetuity to direct light towards the proposed advertising sign away from the highway. So the concern, which is a valid concern about highway safety, would be addressed by that condition to mitigate that potential harm. So I just wanted to point that out within the review.
Councillor Langan, sorry, can I just ask, which condition are you referring to?
Condition 7, page 34 at the very top, Chair.
Oh, got the wrong one, sorry.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, got it. Thank you. Okay, thank you. No, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, just wanted to point out for Mrs. Matthews, just to point out where the signage is. I know you did it earlier on, but in terms of highway and pedestrian safety, which Councillor Morris mentioned earlier, the parking area and where most of the pedestrian footfall lies is to the east of the site. If you could just sort of point that out, Mrs. Matthews, and then I just wanted to just draw that out so that when we do consider highway safety, we consider where is the parking, where are the actual footpaths where people are walking. They tend not to be walking around where the 2 lanes are. So it's just some of the obvious. I just wanted to draw out when we come to these considerations.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, so through you, Chairman, this is the now approved new layout for the site. So you've got the drive-through lanes on this side and the parking area, and the parking area is on the opposite side of the site and toward the front of the building, and the signs that are proposed are along this western side of the building where the ordering points and where the ordering points are and in advance of them. So as Mr. Johnson suggested, there shouldn't be any pedestrians going down there, or there's no way for them to go, or no reason for them to go down that side of the building, because the entrance to the building is for pedestrians is on the front, and they'll be coming potentially from the car park to the front of the building and not needing to go in this area here where the adverts are proposed. So obviously don't consider that there would be that issue. The other point worth noting is that the highway safety would normally only be thought about in detail to do with the public roads rather than on private land, and the sort of responsibility for making sure that pedestrians are safe on private land will be with the owner rather than on public land, where there's a more public responsibility and duty to make sure that things are safe. Well, the layout of areas is safe for pedestrians and all other road users to use. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whilst I thank Mr. Johnson and Miss Matthews, for pointing that out, we have spent, well, McDonald's has spent at least a couple of years now getting children used to running that way for the playground that they will be tarmacking over. So, you know, that has got to be a consideration. These bright screens that take drivers' eyes off the road and what they're doing, I'm not a fan of them at all. I point to the proposal that I put to earlier, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out to members that it's actually the location of where these boards are. The 2 existing, if you look at the top screen, you've got 1 car right at the top. You've then got 2 cars which are going through. The next 2 cars are the ones that will have the screens where you order. Fine, okay, that's not a problem. You'll then have where the next 2 cars are. There'll be 1 on the corner there, and then 1 on the left-hand side as well. Now, and then 1 further on, back in the bit that you go up. I just feel that because this site is extremely small, and it is one of the smallest in the county, if not the smallest that I've come across, I can't find a smaller one, that it is too much development for this site. Yeah. It's overdevelopment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Swain.
Yes, thank you. On the question of pedestrians, and pedestrians do go there, I assume that the serving facilities for pedestrians are separate, and therefore there shouldn't be any mixing with traffic. However, there is, and quite rightly, the question of having adequate pathways protected within the areas is McDonald's problem. But people do cross, people do come from that area and they go into the Tesco car park where they may have stayed, or that they may be going there to take their food. And I think that is the area where the pedestrian risk is, but that is actually, I suppose, on the entrance to Tesco, where they a sort of pseudo zebra crossing. That's the only risk. Otherwise, it's an internal problem for the circulation within McDonald's site.
Thank you, Councillor Swain. So I think did we have a proposal?
Yes.
And was
Deferral to District Planning Committee was the...
sorry?
Councillor Morris proposed that the application be deferred to the District Planning Committee,
Yes.
and that was seconded by Councillor Mays.
Recorded vote, please, sir.
Happy for me to do that?
Yes.
And members, so this is voting for the application to be deferred to the District Planning Committee. If you could indicate for, against or abstain when I call your name, please. Starting with Councillor Miss Beale, please.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Mays.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
For.
Councillor Nunn.
Against.
Councillor Shaughnessy.
Abstain.
Councillor Stilts. Councillor Swain.
Against.
So that's 2 for, Chairman, 4 against and 3 abstentions. So that's lost.
So that's lost. Okay, thank you. So now we go back to... I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't see you, Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whilst I'm not in favour of passing this on the officer's recommendations, what I would like to say is maybe that we consider, my proposal would be that we refuse this under visual clutter and over development of the advertisement sites.
Seconded.
Is that a consideration? Yeah.
Okay, Chairman. So members, voting for refusal as indicated by Councillor Stilts, if you could just indicate for, against or abstain, please, starting with Councillor Miss Beale, please.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
For.
Councillor Lagan.
Against.
Councillor Mays. For. Councillor Morris.
For.
Councillor Nunn. Against. Councillor Shaughnessy.
For.
Councillor Stilts. For. Councillor Swain.
Against.
So that's 4, sorry, so that's 5 for, 3 against and 1 abstaining, Chairman.
Thank you. So that's failed on the grounds that was described.
Chairman, the reasons given were visual clutter and overdevelopment of the advertisement sites.
Thank you. Item number... I've lost now a little bit.
Item 8, Chairman.
8. 21/00297 Silver Street. Can I ask who is talking on this? Thank you. Can I have the officer report, please? When you... Oh, sorry. Report first, yes.
Firstly, please note the members' update with an additional condition regarding details of the ventilation unit to be provided prior to its installation. Number 4 Silver Street is a timber frame property with a rendered frontage, with the earliest parts dating from circa 1400. The proposal relates to various internal and external works which are outlined in detail in the report, but include the rearrangement of the internal layout, an additional staircase, new limecrete floor, replacing the flooring in the cellar, a ventilation system, the removal of the carport, the removal of the a rear conservatory and replacement with a canopy, the removal of a small northern projection and alterations to the fenestration. It's important to note that the proposal is for the work stated only and not for any change of use of the site. Any change of use would require planning permission under a further application and is outside of the scope of the current application and should not form part of the decision-making process. This is the location plan showing the site outlined in red off of Silver Street to the north of the High Street. This is the existing and proposed site plan. The existing and proposed north elevations showing the removal of the cart lodge, the side projection and the alterations to the fenestration, which includes the replacement of most of the windows. The existing and proposed south elevations showing the removal of the conservatory, installation of the covered area, and again alterations to the fenestration. The existing and proposed east elevation plans showing again the removal of the conservatory and changes to the windows. The existing and proposed west elevations showing the removal of the carport and the gates to be restored to the side of the property. All of the windows would remain as they are but would be restored. The existing basement plan and the proposed basement plan showing the internal alterations to the cellar. The existing ground floor plan and the proposed ground floor plan showing the alterations to the layout and the other alterations internally. This is the ground floor plan, but also shows the ceiling, and the proposed ground floor plan also showing the ceiling. The existing first floor plan showing there being 7 bedrooms, and the proposed first floor plan showing it would be reduced to 5 bedrooms. Some sectional drawings of the dwelling, some further sectional drawings, some photographs of the street scene, and you can see the carport to the northern side with the pitched roof that would be removed. Photos of the rear projection on the left hand side, and then the street scene again on the right hand side. Further photos of the rear elevation, the sort of conservatory structure to be removed, and the north side elevation. Some further north and rear elevation photos. And various internal photos of the building. Overall, the proposal is supported by both Historic England and the Council's Conservation Officer, as being an exemplary proposal for this listed building, being comprehensive and sensitive in its approach to the proposed restoration works. It's considered that the proposal will not result in detrimental harm to the residential amenity of neighbouring occupiers, the parking provision at the site, or the provision of private amenity space. The proposal will also not harm the character and appearance of the site or surrounding conservation area, nor will it harm the setting of the listed building. It's therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Louise. Now we have 2 public, 1 objector, 1 supporter. Can I ask, first of all, Miss Wood? You have 2 minutes, if I can remind you on that, starting when you Ready. Thank you.
I'm here as a representative of my neighbours in Silver Street, Cromwell Hill and Beeley Road to object to the following planning applications for Grade 2 star listed for Silver Street. We support the renovations, but we strongly object to the alterations proposed, which are entirely out of proportion for a residential dwelling. External visual change of appearance on every elevation, demolition of a lean-to carport, and breaking through Georgian brick barrel vault cellars to install a secondary staircase of galvanised steel. The committee report for approval opens declaring the reason for listing of properties in this area goes deeper than the aesthetically attractive qualities and show how they have developed organically over the centuries. So why do so many of the proposals for alterations refer to enhancement and improved aesthetic appearance? These proposals pick and choose different parts of the property's history according to neatness and symmetry. There is great inconsistency of handling to the point that no independent consultant has been involved with this application. Historic England has relied totally on documents provided by the Conservation Officer and the applicant's architect. No site visit to conduct an independent assessment has been executed. This application has been dishonest in its approach. The applicant declared at the Town Council planning meeting on the 1st of June that 4 Silver Street would be an Airbnb with a music venue in the cellar. A change of use application should have been raised first. Then if it failed, we would not all be here on the verge of losing the integrity of a heritage building in one of the last street scenes unchanged for over 50 years and reflect the recent media publicity of Maldon District Council's commitment to preserving heritage assets.
Thank you very much, Ms Wood. And can I now ask Mr Spy, is it? If I just remind you have 2 minutes as well, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm here representing the Maldon Society. The committee of the Maldon Society adds its support to this application and the endorsements by several heritage specialists in their support. Society members were given the opportunity to visit the property and tour it over a weekend in June and see the results of the investigatory works that the applicant's been carried out. They saw some exposed, wonderful examples of medieval timber frame, some Georgian modifications that were not quite so good, and some 20th century additions that blatantly distracted from the merits of the original building. There are some very attractive features in the building that have been exposed. The removal of the carport, the porch, the conservatory, the modern windows on the southern side all detract from the purity of the original feature. The extensive scope of the remedial works and the renovation works is a credit to the owner. He's retained notable expertise in the exploration of the building, and they've uncovered a hearth, remains of a hanging curtain in a medieval hall, and what will end up as a knowledgeable tribute to the history and construction of Grade 2 star listed building. We would add our support, and we would urge you to support both these applications.
Thank you very much, Mr Smythe. Okay, so can we open the debate, please? Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I've looked at this one, and I've looked at this one again, and then I looked at it again, and I can't make my mind up on it. For that reason, because I'm usually quite good at judging these ones, I would propose that we do a site visit before we take anything further. There seems to be a lot of positive stuff being said about this, but also we can't ignore the amount of letters of objection. I would ask the rest of the committee to consider a site visit, so that would be my proposal, that this will be deferred so a site visit can take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I need a seconder on that, first of all? Councillor Shaughnessy, you'll second that?
Sorry, Chair. Just in terms of the site visit, I don't know the answer to this, but obviously consideration about the site visit to a dwelling house where obviously there are external works, that's pretty straightforward, but it's the internal works, particularly those which are the substance of a lot of the concerns raised, and how members would need to just execute that sort of site visit to ensure that it's, within safety regulations around COVID, etc., and social distancing.
Chairman, are we entitled to ask for a site visit in private property?
Oh yes, it's nothing against that. I'm just sort of raising that sort of that issue. You're clearly entitled to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, please, Chair.
Yes, Councillor.
I would just say that we need to come up with solutions and not problems. Thank you.
Does anybody want?
Just to say that we do need to have a reason why for the site visit. The Constitution does say that we need to have the reason must be clearly set out by the proposer and recorded.
Okay. Is there any
Yes.
more further debate on Councillor Swain?
I think there were a lot of things to be said on this, including this question of that has been mentioned about an outside view, an independent view. We get the same statements repeated, but they're basically repeating what the conservation officer has written in the past, including English Heritage, who haven't looked at the place. So, I mean, that is a gap. There's no sort of independent view of the impact of this, the impact of all these changes, some of which are producing minimal harm, but there are quite a lot of these instances where the harm is considered acceptable and so on. Obviously the officer has clarified the position on fenestration. I wonder whether we have any view of what this outside canopy thing at the back would look like. I don't know if we've got any information on that, whether we've got a view of it. I mean,
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that is quite a small plan to see, but the condition 3 of the listed building consent would require full details of the materials of all parts of the development to be submitted. So the sort of finer detailings of the canopy and the materials would have to be submitted prior to its installation and agreed by the Council, the Conservation Officer and Historic England. Thank you, Chairman.
I'd like to ask what the impact is on the structure of the building of having this so-called protected corridor, and what the point of that is, which would fundamentally change. I mean, they're changing the nature of the bedrooms considerably internally, and then this corridor presumably running alongside them, effectively separating it from the main house in a way. I don't wonder whether that would have impact on the structure of the building.
Mr. Johnson, can you answer that at all?
I suppose all I can say in that sense is that, given the comments from English Heritage and our own conservation officer, the works would actually strengthen and support the actual building rather than sort of weaken the integrity of it. I mean, that's the whole purpose for, localised intervention into elements of the building and its proposal. So I can't see how, and also having regard to the comments that the proposed works would detract from the physical integrity of the building.
Okay, there is a mention when it comes to this extra staircase, which again seems to me partly to isolate part of the house. But it says, the phrase is, a suitable flight could be designed. I think one would want to have more detail. It could be designed, but there is no design. It hasn't been done. There is then this question of parking, and the fact that it's reduced from 75 bedrooms doesn't seem to matter, because it's more than 4 bedrooms, and therefore there is a requirement for 3 parking spaces, of which there are only 2. I would just want to point out that that sort of parking provision is on this presumption, I think, that the residence is used as a whole family residence. If it were used, you know, and it's lacking a parking space even at that level. I mean, my overall view is that if you move into a building of this age and character, including some of the more recent ones, which are only 100 years old, that you adapt yourself to the building to some extent. You don't try and recreate the building to suit a particular person's lifestyle or whatever. So that's my overall view is that this goes too far in terms of undermining and damaging the existing building. And it's probably even more emphasised by the fact that in doing some of this work they've identified even more features that are relevant to its history.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a really complex decision-making process because it is such a emotive building because it's in an incredibly beautiful part of the town. And what worries me, there's two things that worry me. There's a lot of things that are very positive about it, but to talk about the concerns are, one is the cellar. You know, I think Councillor Swain's already touched upon that, so I don't need to go over old ground on that aspect of it. And the second one is, and I have the highest level of regard for our conservation officer. Without exception, he's one of the best out there. But a desktop report submitted to make a decision on really causes me a tad of concern, probably a greater than tad, because of the nature of the building and the historic value that it brings. So I'm concerned about the fact that, you know, we haven't had the ultimate experts look at this with their own eyes, touch and feel, and that's without being disrespectful for Tim in any way, shape or form. So I have so many positives for it, but I also have a noise in the back of my head saying this could be demonstrable harm for the seller, and I very much like more real high quality expertise to be involved in this. And I'm not that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to say at this point that I have a huge worry. It's not just for this property, but other properties around the town, that developers are allowed to go in before planning permission is granted. Now, Mr. Howson cannot be there 24/7. We don't actually know fully what happens when these people are in there before planning consent is granted. And another property within the town in London Road actually did come a cropper under this scheme, or whatever you call it, where things were taken out of the property, chimney breasts, fireplaces, etc. And so I really think that we need to change our policy on this. This may not be the right time to bring it up, but I feel because of this special property, this number 4, I think it is the right time for myself to bring this up. I don't think people should go into a property and do anything until they've had proper planning permission to do whatever that they set out that they want to do. I'd just like to say that, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
The response I would have to that, in part, is that it's a Grade 2 star listed building. Any works that are carried out to a listed building is a criminal offence. There is usually the case that the historic buildings are recorded in terms of their detailing. At the time when they are listed, there is a comprehensive record of the state of the building at that point in time, in terms of it's what its original construction would have been, and identifying any latter day additions. So there is a detailed records of all the listed buildings in the country, really. Yeah, these are what Historic England draw upon where they look at these buildings. I do appreciate they can't get to every single listed building in the country, given that, you know, their nationwide brief. But it's not a case that they don't have any sort of idea. Even locally within our own services, we have historic records, we have photographs of a lot of listed buildings, particularly the grade 2 star listed buildings, because obviously they're within the sort of higher echelons of listed buildings. But really, if anyone carries out any works and they don't have the listed building consent rather than planning permission, it can normally easily be identified. You know, if it's a building where, you know, it would have been panelled, you know, from its historical origins, and those are removed, we would normally know that because there is a record of what the building would have been. So it's not a sort of blank canvas that they can go in and do what they want, and we wouldn't know, or rather, you know, the listed record wouldn't know. It's obviously just when we identify when that's been done. I don't know, obviously, the person who lives there, how long they've been there, but some of the additions that have been added onto the building do seem to date back quite a bit. You know, 1919 additions and various other additions which have taken place over the 20th century. So that's just a comment I would make, Councillor, just in response to that.
Thank you. Can I ask, sorry, do you want to come back on that? Yes.
Thank you for that, Mr. Johnson. I do take all that on board, but we can't always sort of litigate for unscrupuled people, and you just don't know where they are going to appear. So I would just like to say that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I have some clarity, Mr. Johnson? You said that if anyone does any work on the building, it would be illegal. But didn't we just get told that the gentleman had uncovered some features in the building? So that must mean he's done some work on it.
You probably caught me there. I don't know the full details of that work, but from what I've read of the records, and probably Miss Staplehurst can sort of assist me here, those were removing non-original elements of the building to reveal some of the history that's buried within the building. Now, normally you would still need listed building consent, and the decision to prosecute, I suppose, if you want to take it, that would be with the local authority sort of taking that up. But I understood from what I've read that these were investigative works. Normally there is a case of investigation in terms of these listed buildings where they are recorded. There was a team that was working for the applicant, a recognised team. So that's the only comment I can make at this stage. There has not been any accusation that there's been any destruction of the original fabric of the listed building.
Thank you. Councillor Lunn.
Thank you, Chair. Could Mr Johnson please confirm that the national body responsible for listing and preservation is Historic England, the same body that's mentioned at 5.2.13?
Sorry, Councillor, you said 5.2.13.
Yes. The response from Historic England. Is that body the same body that's responsible for the initial listing and are the custodians of listed buildings?
They may not have been called Historic England back at the time. That's a newer name. Obviously, they were English heritage before that. I couldn't authoritatively say that they were the same sort of building, but institution. But I would imagine that with the legislative ability to list buildings, they would be operating under the same legislative mandate.
It was probably unfair of me to ask Mr Johnson, through you, Chair, perhaps the case officer could address that.
Through you, Chairman, it is my understanding that I think they were called English Heritage previously, but that they were responsible for the original listing of the building and do hold those records. That is my understanding, yes.
Thank you very much.
Councillor May, as this was called in by yourself, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chairman. I've lived in two Grade 2 listed buildings, and I know that you can't do virtually anything, and I have been very surprised that any work has been carried out at all of any type, investigatory or otherwise. However, having said that, I think there are some very good points in here. You know, the laying of the pavers, for example, in the cellar, it's going to be on sand, which is great because it will impede natural moisture, as it says in the report. However, we then contradict that by saying there's going to be a ventilation system, and I'm not quite sure how one marries the two up. Whether they're, I mean, I think it's not actually going to be a fixed system, it's going to be a movable system. Don't know, there's not a terrible, I know there was an update. The secondary stairs, again, why? This is a home cellar. Cellars are, you know, what they are. They're sort of cold, dark places. Window removals, the cart lodge bit on the side, which part of history do we want to keep and which don't we? We shouldn't be picking and choosing. If English Heritage or Historic England, I'm sorry, have said that, you know, the cart lodge is there from 1919, I understand, just after the Great War, why should we be actually altering the street scene that has stood there since that time? I am concerned about some of the other small parts of it, but there are some very, very good bits, and there is some very good work that is being done. I think we then come back to the proposal that was on the table to actually do a site visit. I think this may well actually help with this particular case, but I'll defer to you for further guidance on that. Thank you.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I was hoping that some of the debate might help me make a decision, but it's actually just made me more certain that we need a site visit. This is a very, very finely balanced one. In the whole time that I've been at this council, 2 years odd now, I've only ever known one site visit. I believe it's necessary, so my proposal was to do a site visit, deferred site visit, and that was seconded by Councillor O'Shaughnessy. So I'd ask that it goes to the vote, please, sir.
Okay. Tara, can we?
Chairman, just going back to the Council's constitution, that it does say that we do need a reason for the site visit. It has to be clearly set out and recorded in the minutes.
Okay. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I would just say that this is such a finely balanced decision that we would need to actually go there and see it. The site visit would aid the best decision, because as it is now, it's on a knife edge. I mean, I read some parts of the report and I'm like, yep, we should do this. Then I hear and read other parts and I'm like, maybe, you know, we're making a mistake. So I personally would not be able to vote either way unless I had a site visit. And I get the feeling that the room is full of abstentions as it is. And I'd hope that a site visit would remedy that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Slade.
The reason for the site visit, there are certain aspects.
Make that difference. There are certain aspects.
Being recorded.
There are certain aspects of the proposals which give cause for concern about damage to the status of the building as a Grade 2 star.
Thank you. Okay. So, recorded vote then, presumably?
Recorded vote, please, Chair.
Have a seconder for that, Councillor May.
Thank you, Chairman. So members, this is a recorded vote, voting to defer determination pending a site visit as proposed by Councillor Morris. If you could indicate for, against or abstain when I call your name, please. Starting with Councillor Miss Beale.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
For.
Councillor Lagan.
Against.
Councillor Mays.
For.
Councillor Morris.
For.
Councillor Nunn.
Against.
Councillor Shaughnessy.
For.
Councillor Stilts.
Abstain.
Councillor Swain.
For.
So, Chairman, that's 6 for, 2 against, 1 abstention. Thank you.
So that motion has it. How do we go about organising a site visit? Who will do that? Mr Johnson. Sorry. Louise.
Chairman, I'll contact members and the applicant to arrange that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Through the chair, excuse me, just to let everyone know that I'm not getting emails and don't expect to get any emails anytime soon. So if I can please be contacted, not through emails that I'm not getting, that everyone knows about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Noted. Councillor Morris. Okay, so that's the recommendation. Sorry, that's been approved. Item 6 is any items of business. There are none. So I close this meeting at 7 minutes past 9. Thank you very much for coming.